Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes. Welcome back, everybody, to the QuiverCast. This is Mike, your host, and this is all brought to you by YourAudioLegacy.com and QuiverBuilder.com. And please check out my other podcast, The Stinky Booties, I do with my buddy, Billy. Let's roll. Hello, everybody. This is Mike with the QuiverCast, and today's special guest is Sunshine Makarow. How are you, Sunshine?
I'm doing good. How you going?
Good. I'm doing good. So thanks for inviting me to cruise over and get a good interview. I'm so happy. So how did this whole thing start? How did you start surfing?
Started surfing. I was just a little grom playing in the sand at Zuma Beach and was like, oh, look at those guys out there surfing. That looks super fun. And classic grom move, right? Riding my boogie board, standing up on the boogie board. And my mom had surfed back in the day, back in the 60s, like super big Beach Boys fan, the whole deal. So she's like, all right, well, we can look for a board while we're garage sailing this weekend. Always, Saturday mornings, got to go garage sailing. So not too long after that, found this really sweet 5'5" Midget Smith twin fin.
Really?
Little like wings, swallowtail, the whole deal. I mean, it was probably $50 or something.
Okay,
This was,
okay.
Don't want to date myself, but we'll just say mid-80s.
Okay, perfect.
And got that board. She showed me some of the basics, how to pop up. And then it was like, there you go. Go out there and have fun. And I probably for 2 years, all I did was ride whitewater. And that's great when you're, you're a grom in Malibu.
All right. A couple questions though. So was it Zuma proper you were surfing and popping up?
Yes. Yeah. So the north end is Zuma Beach.
Okay. So it's a little more sand, like it breaks out a little further.
Yeah, I mean, you walk waist deep, and I don't know
flip around and
how.
get on the board.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're walking out, you're standing waist deep, and you're not paddling into any waves. that's for sure.
Yeah.
Jumping in the white water.
So how was that? Were there a lot of surfers out there then?
I think so. I mean, it was like the mid 80s, the whole Zinca phase.
Like the hot pink and yellow and all.
Oh yeah, big time. I think Back to the Beach was like the big hit, and you'd go to Zuma on any given weekend, and the whole beach was just packed. Volleyball courts, like just neon as far as you can see. People parking up in the neighborhoods, got like the boom boxes on their shoulders, like that's Hawaiian Tropic cruising down. Rad. It was like, yeah.
So it was like a lifestyle.
Oh yeah.
For you, did it become a lifestyle?
Absolutely. So our family, we lived just up the road. It was about a 5-minute drive to the beach, and pretty much that's where we were all summer long for a few hours each day. It wasn't like camped out all day, but a few hours. My mom would lay out. My sister and I would just kind of play around in the water, and a couple hours each day. That was it in the summertime, and anytime that the weather was nice enough to be down there.
Okay. So does your sister surf?
Sort of.
She didn't catch it like you did?
No, not at all. So I think she's trying to get back into it. She's got a boat. She's into wakeboarding.
Okay.
But yeah, surfing was, for a few years she kind of did it like I did, but never really got the bite there, the passion.
So no competitive between you guys? Like the competition?
No. So she never competed in surfing or anything. It was just a little bit when we were kids in the whitewater.
Yeah. So, but you guys never like tried to outdo each other is what I meant, like competitive.
No, not with surfing.
Okay, cool. Other things, huh?
Oh yeah,
all
big
right.
time.
We'll have to get into that. Okay, so how does that progress in Zuma? So you couple years whitewash summer, and the water's a little chillier up there than let's say in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean summertime still spring suits. It's all good.
Okay.
Not much colder, but yeah, I just started riding the open face waves then after I don't know how long, but I had been boogie boarding. So I knew how to catch waves and do that. It was just big difference when you're 8 years old standing on a surfboard versus boogie board.
Yeah.
So started riding a little bit more, and Zuma's pretty much the opposite of Malibu, where you don't even know what a cutback is. You learn how to floater, you learn how to pull in and get closed out on, but in terms of a cutback, that's completely foreign. So grew up, surfing Zuma and just learning how to drive down the line, and pretty good with floaters.
So you got to learn how to get up real quick too, probably.
Oh yeah.
And just like go down the line.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's not a lot of
surfing. So I see the boards you're riding today, and they're like suited for Zuma. A lot of them. So you're still surfed the same way.
Yeah. After you spend that many years, it's definitely inbred there.
Okay.
So.
All right. So then how's the local crew there in Zuma? Were you like accepted in there, or how was it? Did you have to work your way up?
You know, at that age, you just kind of don't even know what's going on.
Right.
So,
Got you there.
Yeah. I mean, and also during those days, people would let you know if you did something wrong.
Okay.
So there wasn't really like a pecking order, like let's say at Malibu or even Leo Carrillo, where, oh, you're Grom, like you got to hang off on the shoulder. Zuma's just a beach break and you kind of spread out. And yeah, but then if you did stuff, I mean, I remember I don't know, probably 10, 11 years old. I didn't even know how to duck dive and a set came and I just bailed my board to the side and didn't look behind me. It almost cracked somebody in the head and I got a good talking to.
Okay.
And, you know, they didn't really care that it was like a little 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like they're like, no, that is not okay behavior. You can't just bail your board and not look. Like,
yes.
And so it was a good lesson. Yeah. And I think sometimes we need a little bit more of that. There's, a lot of people that aren't following the etiquette and the rules. And yeah, you learn those things early. So it's not like there was a pecking order and you had to work your way up, but you'd be put in your place if you were not acting appropriately.
You think that's gone today?
A lot of lineups are, yeah. You see some pretty crazy stuff out there.
Okay. I don't think Zuma's one of them, maybe?
Probably not so much Zuma. I haven't surfed Zuma quite a long time, probably 10 years or more. So I couldn't really say what's going on there now, but
all right.
But especially if you go to somewhere like La Jolla Shores.
Oh, that's a mess. Doheny.
Exactly.
Even I don't know about San Onofre. I don't surf there enough, but yeah, some of those places, it's almost acceptable to be a kook, kind of. I don't want to say it that way, but it's kind of true.
Yes.
I can tell you an example. One time I was camping Doheny, and I usually don't talk about me, but whatever. I was surfing those Doheny, and the guy blatantly burned it. I almost ran him over. And I was on a 10-foot longboard. And he looked at me and goes, "This is Doheny. We do what we want." And the guy couldn't even stand up. And I'm like, he's kind of right. I mean, anyhow. Right.
Yeah. No, but yeah, people are a little bit like, they'll back paddle you and barely be able to stand. And, and you're just kind of like, okay, yeah. So there's definitely some interesting things that are going on in the lineup these days that I think, especially for anyone that has been surfing since the 80s or earlier, kind of would be like, yeah, that would not have flown back in those days.
Right. So yeah, we need to bring some of that back, I believe, in my opinion. Okay. So then you're going to junior high or in high school, all that. How did that go in Zuma?
I guess kind of the same. I didn't really pay a lot of attention. Okay. It was just kind of
you just
like
progressed in your surfing?
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said, it's just kind of beach break. You go there, you spread out. You're not really too worried. Sometimes you see your friends. Actually went to junior high with Jimmy Gamboa, Pascal Stansfield, Anthony Petruso. Those were all really good surfers. And they would actually be more around like Point Doom or those breaks, but occasionally you see them. And Carla Rowland was... Those are Carla and Jimmy are more like great longboarders at Malibu, but that was kind of like my era. And sometimes you'd see the people out there, but most of the time it's just like, hey, I want to have fun, go catch a few waves, and didn't really worry too much about the pecking order of the crowd.
So how'd you feel about school? Like, were you, if it's like kind of offshore and like sunny out, were you feeding to go surf?
So it was brutal a bit because I was going to Santa Monica High School.
Well, that's far.
Ninth grade and the first half of 10th grade. And you take the bus in the morning. I think you have to jump on the bus at 7 a.m. And it's about an hour-long bus ride from Zuma out to Santa Monica. Whoa. It was a great opportunity to get your homework done, but you're driving past all the best breaks. So if the waves are good and you're driving by Malibu and seeing it firing, driving by Topanga, and you're just like, oh, what am I doing? And yeah, so that was probably the worst.
That would totally be horrible. I'll be honest with you. If it's like good Malibu, especially if it's like maybe a September, it's a little less crowded. and you're going to school. That would suck.
Yeah.
That would suck. Okay. So did they have a surf team in Santa Monica or anything?
I don't know if they had a team. They had a club.
Okay.
So I was part of the club. Yes.
Okay. So did you surf with the Santa Monica people?
Every once in a while, they would kind of go to Bay Street, and Bay Street is kind of an even more closed out version of Zuma.
Yes.
So if you can surf Bay Street, I think you can pretty much surf anywhere.
Really?
That's a fast closeout wave. So.
Okay. So why did you have to travel so far? There's no schools in Malibu?
That was when Malibu High School was just starting. And so they were actually phasing it. And the first year was just ninth graders. And then they were going to have ninth and 10th grade and build on it from that. But from my perspective, I was like, all right, it's definitely a trek to go to Santa Monica, but it's a big school, a lot of chance for meeting new people, a lot more sports programs, different like theater programs, music programs, etc. So just a lot more options by doing that very long, brutal bus ride.
Okay. So what else were you into besides surfing?
At that point, I was playing softball a lot.
Okay. Was it even passion, or was it passion towards one more than the other?
Probably at that time, I was a little bit more into softball.
Really?
And yeah, I just got really into that in junior high and high school. So I was still always surfing, but it was kind of more just a fun little side hobby and going big with softball.
Really? Okay. So then you get a little older. So when did you start competing? Did you compete?
I think the first competition, I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So definitely.
So out of high school, or just finishing high school?
My senior year in high school.
Okay, cool. What contest was it? Was it like a local contest?
It was a local shop contest, and it was really funny. So this is my family had moved up to the Central Coast, and we were living in Cambria, and there was a contest at my local break, Rosa's. And a lot of the guys that I surfed with all the time were like, oh yeah, there's girls division. You should come do it.
Okay.
And I don't know, it was probably $30 to enter it, something like that. Like, there's always great prizes. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I go out there. At that time, I can't even remember if it was just the final. It might've been the semis and then a final. But in any case, I was out there, didn't have any idea how a contest ran. And the 5-minute horn sounds. And I thought the heat was over. So I came in and like all my friends were on the beach and are like, no, go back out there. It's not over. It's not over. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I ended up catching one more wave. And
so you didn't have the concept of the contest, really?
No concept. Yeah.
You were just trying to catch waves?
Yeah, exactly.
No watch on?
I think I had a watch, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm just like, okay, I'm just supposed to go surf for 20 minutes. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So did you like that, or the contest setting?
Yeah. So it ended up being like really fun. And then from there, I think I maybe did one more contest the next year.
Okay.
And then I decided, actually, like, long story with going away to college, and actually I did an internship at Surfer Magazine.
Oh,
and then
really? That's right.
I was like, oh, maybe I do want to try competing. And so then when I was about 20 years old, I started doing a lot of the NSSA.
Okay.
And at that point it was USSF. Now it's WSA.
Yep. But
the other amateur organization, and just started doing a ton of amateur contests. But yeah, not till I was about 20 did I start. So
kind of like a late bloomer. Kind of.
Okay. Doing a lot of those.
Cool. Where was softball at this point in your life?
At that point, I was like, I thought I was going to play in college, and then that just kind of didn't work out. And so it was like, that part of my life was pretty much over at that point. Okay.
So surfing, it was, to describe surfing at that point in your life, what it meant to you. Was it more than just a hobby at that point?
Yes. Yeah. So that was when it was really like, surfing's always been there for me, and it's always been something I've done, but now I want it to be the thing that I do.
Okay. And were you going to school and stuff at the time too?
Yeah. So at that point I was in community college. Okay. And taking those classes. So I was working in community college and then surfing all the amateur contests.
So you're just running wild. Yeah. Like just ragged, probably just all directions. Cool. So then when does Surfer Magazine come in? I didn't know you worked your intern there. How was that?
Oh, that was really cool. It was great to see. And it was kind of interesting. Was
Surfer in San Clemente at the time, or where were they?
In San Clemente, yes. Okay. And that was when surfing were totally different organizations. Yes. This is when Steve Hawk was the editor. Okay. So really great times there, and just so fascinating to see how it all works out. And this is still like the photographers would have slideshows and everyone was like just starting to get on email. So it was totally different times.
What year is this?
This was 97.
97. So emails just kind of starting. Okay, so what was your job, or you just do everything?
Just an editorial intern. So kind of whatever they needed in that department.
That's
for a few months, yeah.
Just a few months, just enough to like. So did you like it? The concept of what they were doing?
Yeah, and it really motivated me because then for a while I launched. So when I finished from community college, then I went to Cal Poly for my undergraduate degree.
San Luis Obispo?
San Luis Obispo, yeah. Very, very focused on experiential education and senior projects. So my senior project was launching a women's surf magazine. Wow. So kind of took what I learned there and focused on the women's side of things and gave that a go.
Okay, so what was the name of that?
That was Surf Life for Women.
Surf Life for Women. Okay, cool. Was it like published everywhere, or how could you get it? Was it local?
Yeah, so it was available throughout the U.S. So it was in a lot of the surf stores.
Okay, cool.
Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, things like that.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was in a lot of the major bookstores and then surf shops, and then mainly the U.S., but there was some international distribution, again, through some of those larger chains like Barnes and Nobles.
Okay, was it quarterly or what was it?
Quarterly, yes.
Oh, cool. Was it like, so describe the magazine as opposed to like a surfer reading a surfer. Is it similar, or is it more like a surf journal?
So I'd say, I mean, I definitely was inspired by Surfer, and that's what I grew up reading.
Okay.
And so I wanted to make it, like very like core surf stories, but about women.
Okay.
And so at that time, Wahine magazine was already out, and they definitely had, it was great to see them. And their vibe was, I think, a little bit more spiritual and artistic.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a little more focused on like the sport and really getting into that aspect. But it wasn't like, and then you got something like Surfer's Journal, which is very like historical and like long form pieces. I wanted to have it, the surfer kind of thing where there were some like feature articles, but a lot of little nuggets and just tons of great photos.
Oh, rad. How long did that go for?
That was about 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I never saw it, but that's rad. I'm stoked for you. Okay, so what did you learn from that experience? Did you learn anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
That was basically my informal MBA is what I call it. It's you start to learn about the real world and how different it is from what they actually teach you in school and how things work.
So what'd you learn?
On that one, I learned really the importance of connections and the relationships and the connections.
Okay.
And really the importance of that, especially in an industry like the surf industry, to get the support and the funding to keep going there. So it's every industry has their different nuances.
Okay.
Right now I work in biotech, and that's a whole other situation. But yeah, within the surf industry, it was really the importance of the heritage and the relationships and the connections.
Okay. So then now you're at San Luis Obispo, you're doing the magazine. Where are you surfing?
So I was living in Morro Bay at that time. Okay. So pretty much surfing between Morro Bay and Cayucas for the most part. Could see me out at the Rock a lot of times or the different beach breaks around Cayucas. Sometimes Cayucas Pier. That's the spot when it's big in the winter. So every once in a while, Montana de Oro, down Pismo, that area, or back up to Cambria where I was in high school, Cambria, San Simeon. So kind of depending on how much time I had that day, what the swell was doing. But most of the time, Morro Bay, Cayucas. Okay.
So how are the waves there compared to like Zuma?
A lot bigger.
Versus bigger. Okay, yeah, bigger. A different kind of heavy?
Exactly. Different kind of heavy. There's a lot of options too. So if you're willing to drive, you pretty much have anything available to you. There's a lot of big, heavy reefs. There's a lot of days on the Central Coast where it's too big to surf. Actually.
So you got to find somewhere sheltered?
Exactly. Like there's like 2 spots that you can surf like inside the harbor on low tide.
I've heard those. That's so rad.
Otherwise, if you don't want to surf a 15 to 20 foot heavy reef break, you're pretty much out of luck. Unless you want to drive to Santa Barbara. But
that's a drive.
If there's just like all the beach breaks, it's just too big, it's closed out. So there's a lot of days where where I couldn't surf because it was too big. And I had no business being out in a 15, 20 foot reef break.
Okay, you don't have to answer this, but can anybody just paddle out inside the harbor and surf if it's good? Or do you got to be like a local?
Anyone can, and that's kind of the problem, is it gets really crowded.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few breaks. There's like the different jetties have different levels, but some of them, yeah. And because what'll happen is that will be the spot. If you don't want to surf the reef, the big heavy reef, and you don't have time to drive to Santa Barbara, that'll be the one spot you can surf that day. But again, it's got to be a very specific tide. And so there's very small window. And so the whole county is like, okay, this is the only spot to surf today.
Okay. So then I have a couple questions. And then one is, how do they accept you being a college student there as opposed to growing up there?
Yeah, so I actually had gone to high school there, so already knew pretty much the local crowd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I missed that part.
Yeah. So definitely had, they had known me since I was 16.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. A lot of, I don't know if you, there's Mike Jones who runs that company As High As I Am, like great guy, Tyson Armstrong, Gabe Gazzola, Danny Hart, all like the local boys that were charging. So they knew me, they had seen me at a lot of the reef breaks, the heavier days. So for me, it wasn't really an issue. But then the other folks, if you go to places like Pismo Pier or Morro Rock, there's just always the college kids coming and going. And yeah, I think it's like most breaks. As long as you're not obnoxious and disrespectful, it's fine. Okay. It's just when you paddle out there and start acting like everything belongs to you. Okay,
so then a couple more questions. Versus Southern California surfer and Central Coast, are they the same surfer or are they kind of different? Does that make sense? The question?
Yeah.
It seems like the Central guys are got to be more hardcore. They're more element, colder water.
Exactly.
Kelp, reefs.
Exactly.
Okay, we kind of spoiled here in Southern California, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they laugh at me when I come home, and now I can't surf there without my hood. And I mean, there's in springtime on the Central Coast, it's victory at sea by 10 a.m. every single day. And you can just imagine how cold the water is.
It never warms up, right?
No, it really doesn't. It used to be nice when the power plant would discharge the warm water you jump in, and some days it was like so warm you think your wax would melt. And then other days you're like, oh, it's not warm today. And then you hit the line where the regular water is. You're like, oh, apparently it was.
Yeah, it was a fight.
And but they don't do that anymore, so that doesn't happen. But yeah, a lot of onshore winds. So the water there is, I think, just as cold as San Francisco. Santa Cruz is actually warmer because it's protected. It's that little bay and all the kelp. So
less open water.
Exactly. So San Luis Obispo will be colder than Santa Cruz, pretty similar to San Francisco.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Santa Cruz is freezing.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then I didn't know. So anything about high school surfing up there? How did that jump from Zuma to there?
My family just was like, yeah, we're ready for a change, get out of LA and go somewhere a little bit more mellow. So went up there, and going up there, then there's much more specific breaks. So more of the reef breaks and much more finicky. Like Zuma is just kind of like, it's Zuma unless it's too big. That's kind of the call. Plus, I couldn't drive at that time. So it was like, that's pretty much where my mom would take me.
Yep.
Every once in a while, I could get a drive to like Leo Carrillo or something. But most of the time, it's Zuma. And then moving up to Cambria, that's when I got my license, got a car. All right. But there's so many different breaks. And they, depending on the swell, the tide, the winds, where you're going to go. So, but you get to know the same group. So there's not that many surfers. And especially a place like Cambria, there's not, like the college kids don't come up there that much. So pretty much you know who the surfers are. There wasn't a time that I think I paddled out that I didn't know probably at least 50% of the people in the water.
Did you paddle out by yourself a lot or not really?
I did, yeah.
How was that?
That was fine. Like it really didn't concern me at all. And
what about like wildlife, the animals in the water? Yeah. There seems to be a lot more up there and bigger ones.
Oh yeah. So probably in retrospect, did some things that weren't too smart.
Like what?
There was there's this beach that the elephant seals would be at. Now it's completely fenced off. You can't get in there. But back when I was in high school, there was just a little gate, a little like cow pasture and the beach. So what you do is, you surfers, you hop the fence, you run across the cow pasture, and you paddle out.
Okay.
Now, all the elephant seals are on the beach. You're running around them. You're like, whatever. But then at like one point, I'm watching as I'm running out the beach. There's two like males fighting for alpha male status. And these guys are probably like 16, 18 feet long. So they're laying there. But just the parts of their front end that's lifted up is taller than me. I mean, we're probably talking like 6, 7 feet right there.
Gosh.
And they're like biting each other in the neck, like having at it because they want to, be the alpha male over like the 30 female elephant seals on the beach there. And they're like biting each other. And then, I'm like, all right, cool. Run past them, paddle out. And then the loser swims out, like sulking. And then like I see him, and then I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? This is like the 16-foot elephant seal that's swimming around bleeding. Probably not a good idea.
For the sharks' purposes? Yeah. Sketchy.
So, I wasn't worried about like the elephant seals at all, but just what that might attract.
Wow. That's a great story. That's like National Geographic video. If you had phones like we do today.
Yeah. And they make some crazy sounds too. Like I'd be out there and I wouldn't even realize it. I thought it was a Caltrans doing some construction because it sounded like cement scraping on cement.
Really?
Yeah. And it took me forever to realize like, oh, that's actually their cry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything else you've seen out there? Kind of gnarly? Sharks? You ever see sharks?
No, but kind of thought we did once. So speaking about surfing alone, went up to the spot in Big Sur and got there. Waves look pretty fun.
Okay.
Drove up there by myself.
Okay.
And there was one other car. It was actually my friend Jackson. Just randomly saw him up there.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, it looks fun. So we suit up. We're going out. As we're walking across the beach, we see like a half-eaten seal. So there's that. and we paddle out, and we're totally on different peaks because like there's no reason. We've got the whole huge beach to ourselves. There's no reason to be there. Surfing about like 45 minutes, catching some fun waves, and then all of a sudden I happen to like look over and I see just Jackson just paddling as fast as he can towards the shore. And I'm sitting here going, I'm pretty sure he didn't realize he was late for brunch.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, I better paddle in too. Like, I don't know what's going on. So like, I go in as fast as I can.
Okay.
And he's now standing on the beach, holding his board, just looking out at the sea. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I just saw this huge mouth coming at me.
Seriously?
And I just started paddling. And so I'm like, thanks for yelling. Thanks for letting me know, man.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And so then we're sitting there, and then we see this huge whale come up and breach. So he did see a huge mouth coming up at him, but luckily it was just our friendly whale.
Oh,
yeah.
So crazy. Okay. So are you competing up there then? And where are you competing?
Yeah, so at that point it was the NSSA. So it's the NSSA Gold Coast, so which is I think from
Santa Barbara.
Ventura north.
Okay.
Ventura to Santa Cruz, maybe.
Okay. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be changed now. This was a while ago. And then the USSF and WSA. So that was pretty much from Santa Cruz to San Diego. So they just had the one series where NSSA had the different regions.
Right.
So pretty much every weekend I'm going to a contest somewhere.
Are you going to how's Santa Cruz to you? How'd you feel about it? Did you like the way?
Yeah, it was fun, and I ended up making friends with some of the girls on the east side.
Okay.
So Pleasure Point,
yeah. Which is a funner wave, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I only really surfed steamer lane during the contest because all my friends ended up being at Pleasure Point, and so I just get up there and kind of start amping when we see little waves, but then just peeling so perfectly. And we had some contests on some pretty big days too.
They just run them.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Okay, so how many girls are out there surfing with you at this point? Is it Santa Cruz? Is there any other girls surfing with you in the Central Coast?
Yeah, there was a few.
Okay,
so
cool.
Actually, kind of like the local legend was Sarah Gearhart, who was the first woman to surf Mavericks.
Oh, I knew I've heard her name. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was there and she was charging the local reefs.
Where was she from?
She was from that area, Los Osos, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so she, like I said, those days that I'm like, oh, it's too big. Like I can't surf.
She was heading
she
out?
would be out there at those reefs, just
Wow.
like mad respect. So there was her and a couple other girls around. So definitely wasn't the only one, but I don't know. At that time, there were probably 10% of the surfers in the water were women.
Okay. That's
around the Central Coast.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're talking big waves. Do you like big waves?
Big waves scare me.
Okay.
I'd say anything over, well, it depends on how pitchy the wave is, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I think the biggest wave I've taken off on is like a 10 to 12 foot face.
Okay.
And that's probably as big as I want to go.
Okay. So living up there, and then let's just say watching her. Are you on the beach or on the cliff or wherever watching her?
I did watch, some days.
Were you trying to like, what were you thinking? Were you thinking at all?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any thought like, I do need to paddle out there? I don't need to? Or
I was just like, maybe one day.
Okay.
Maybe one day. Because some of those waves too, you'd see the guys, some of those reefs would look like backdoor. And you see these guys just do these like late drops and just do like little bottom turns, pull in and just get this huge shack and just get spit out.
Huh.
And I mean, you're just like, but it's like backdoor. Like you don't paddle out there unless you know what you're doing and you're confident. That's not a wave you play around on.
You don't want to say the name. You don't have to. So it's like, is it far out? Do you have to paddle like a distance or is it kind of close to shore?
There's a few different ones. Some of them are pretty darn far out. Like you're going to be paddling. It's like flat water, so it's not like you're duck diving a ton. But in order to get to it, there's probably some that are like 10 or 15 minute paddle just to get out there. And then there's some that are pretty close to shore, just like a normal.
Okay. So then now you're like, what did you do? You graduated school now at this point, probably?
Yeah.
So then where'd you go in life?
Yeah, so it was working on the magazine for a few years, and then it was.
So your magazine was after school or during?
That was my senior project. So launched it when I was a senior.
And kept it going.
Kept it going, and then it kind of was like, all right, this isn't really working out. It's time to figure out what's going to happen next. And at that point, I had a lot of friends in the San Diego area, and was like, well, there's just a lot more job opportunities down there. And I've been here for a while. I think it's time for a change. So that's when I moved down to Carlsbad.
Okay. And so you've been here for a while.
Yes.
Okay.
About 15 years now, 15, 16 years.
Okay. So what's your first thought of moving here from cold water?
Yeah.
I mean, we get cold water too, but
I was like, it's warm. In the first year, I was just.
Softer waves, probably.
Yeah. You can surf every day.
Yeah.
There's no days where, I don't think there's a single day where you're like, it's too big. Because. Yeah, it might be too big at Oceanside Harbor, and then you can go to some reefs. You can go down to Pipes or plenty of other spots.
Where's your go-to spot now? You want to say or you don't have to? You don't have to. That's funny.
I'm all around.
Okay, so let's talk about now in the last 15 years. What's been going on surfing-wise?
Yeah, so I... Actually,
is that too big of a question?
No, I'll break it down. So when I came down, I was just focused on working and surfing for fun. Okay. And I think I did do a few contests. Carolyn Kramer, who used to run a lot of the WSA contests, she does the Surf for the Sea. So she's like, oh, you should come do these contests. So I think I do that like once a year.
Okay, cool.
And then I went back to school to get my MBA and went to Cal State San Marcos. And it's a working MBA program. So you're pretty much just going on Saturdays. It's not like a full like college experience, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But then Amber had heard that I was going and she's like, oh, we need another girl on the surf team. Like we're having tryouts this weekend. And I'm like, well, I work 9 to 5, 5 days a week and then do school on Saturday, but sure. you know? So, and then I guess I think the contest must've been on Sunday because that's the only way I could have done that with school being on Saturday. It's amazing what you forget.
Yeah.
And so I ended up joining the team, and that was the first year we won the national championships.
Rad.
So
that was rad.
Yeah, and I made it to I think Amber did a pretty good job. Amber Pua having the surf team practices, but having the 9 to 5 corporate job was.
So did you know Amber previously?
I knew
Or did you see her in
her
the
from
lineup?
surfing.
Okay.
I used to surf the harbor all the time.
Okay.
And some of my friends knew her. And yeah, just kind of got to know each other talking in the water.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So you're just basically surfing around here most of the time. Let's talk about some of your travels.
Yeah.
Okay. So where have you been?
Oh, gosh.
Let's go one at a time.
Probably look at the map. So,
You got a map right behind you.
yeah. Been to Mexico a few times.
Okay.
Love
Mainland?
Mexico.
Or
Mainland and been to Cabo a few times, and then
Okay.
just like super North Baja, just like an hour
Yeah,
south
yeah,
of the border here. So
San Miguel or something.
exactly. So it's not like I've like explored Baja, but
Mm-hmm.
so that part. Been to just going down then most of Central America. So
Really?
been to
Okay.
Nicaragua, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama.
Okay.
I think Guatemala is probably the only one that I haven't.
Okay. So describe some of
Hit
those
in there.
ways, and are they different from like El Salvador to Costa Rica? Are the setup's different?
Yes and no. It
Okay.
kind of depends because a lot of the point breaks are pretty similar. And what's nice is that a lot of the waves are very similar to California. So if you go down, you might be like, oh, I rode this wave. It reminds me of C Street and Ventura, or this reminds me of Rincon, or so it's a lot of like the rocky points, and especially in El Salvador.
Just warm water.
El Salvador is just like the land of rocky right points.
Okay.
It's incredible. And then Costa Rica.
So is that a thumbs up for El Salvador?
I like El Salvador. Yeah.
Okay. Is it crowded there?
It depends where you go, because there are some places that are, some aren't, and there are some too that it's kind of got more of a local vibe. So again, you're the tourist. You got to hang out on the shoulder and pick up the
give
scraps.
respect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So there is a heavy guys out there that are local.
Certain breaks for sure.
So is there like surf towns or surf
Yes.
regions
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of like here maybe? I always picture it like I've never been down there, so I don't know.
Oh,
I always think of it as like we brought surfing and it's kind of relatively new to them. But I don't know. You tell me.
it might be relatively new, but there's
picked it
definitely
up.
some people that know what they're doing.
Okay.
That are ripping. Yeah.
Now, where are they getting their boards and stuff from? Do you know? Are there like a local label?
I think there is some local boards,
Okay.
and then obviously so many traveling surfers, and
Leave
then just buy it off them.
Okay.
Fix them, things like that.
So what about Panama? You've been to Panama?
Yeah, I just went to Panama this year.
Okay. So tell us about that trip. That's the most recent. It's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, so Panama was interesting because most people think Bocas del Toro, and that's on the Caribbean side, and I've heard it's beautiful. Did not go there.
Okay.
I was on the Pacific side in this super remote like jungle area, and it was kind of a mix. There was a beach break that was not really having its best time. It was more closeouts than not. I'm sure on a different swell, different conditions, it's better. And then there was a few left reef breaks that were pretty fun. But it was a little bit inconsistent when I was there, so you kind of had to sit and wait for a bit too. But it was beautiful. I mean, you're tropical fish, tropical water. Just you're looking at the countryside, and I think where we were staying, there was maybe 50 people in 100 kilometers.
Really?
It was super remote. So
Wow.
I mean, we're like taking the pongo boats out there. There might be like one or two little like houses that people had built on that little island, and there, yeah. So you're just looking at just, beautiful, green, lush, tropical hills and islands. And yeah, it's just so nice to get out and have that experience.
Was it nice? So do you like the more remote areas, or do you like them like in town or like resorts?
I tend to like the more remote areas,
Okay.
but with certain creature comforts like hot water and a shower.
Okay. You don't want to totally rough it.
Like a flush toilet
Yeah,
and
that'd
like
be
lights
nice.
in the bathroom, those kind of things.
Okay.
But I'm definitely not looking for a Cabo experience and to go clubbing every night and,
Okay.
and that sort of deal.
Yeah, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
hey, if you are, awesome. But
Where else you been? So anything else about Central America? Warm water, point breaks? What about like versus Costa Rica? How do you feel about Costa Rica?
Costa Rica, I feel like you can definitely get away a little bit more, but Costa Rica's kind of where everyone goes.
Right.
And it's kind of like the joke too that Costa Rica is like the other Canada, because you go to Costa Rica and like everyone has that I met a Canadian story in Costa Rica. But I mean, it's just like Costa Rica is just like, oh, everyone thinks of it. It's this tropical location versus like El Salvador, Nicaragua. That still scares a lot of people. And they're like, oh, you're going to El Salvador? Like,
El Salvador sounds frightening.
And so there's a lot of people. I mean, surfers will go there, but you're not going to have like your beach touristy crowds like you do in places like Costa Rica.
So going to those countries and you're flying in, how do you get to where your destination is to surf? Are you kind of undercover?
No. Usually I'll go through a surf camp.
Okay. So they pick you up
Exactly. They'll pick you up at the airport. And I really like to do the ones that are more local based. And
meaning what?
So it's like locals that have set it up and run it. And so it's not like expatriates that have just like gone and been like, oh, I'm going to set up the surf camp here. But it's, actual people there. And I think especially in places like El Salvador, Nicaragua, where as you drive to these breaks and it can be pretty remote, it's good that other people know, like, oh, that's John's surf camp. Like, we're not going to mess with those people. Like, versus like someone just showing up in some nice rental car and a bunch of expensive gear in the car. It's
okay. So you feel safer.
Exactly.
Okay. And then, all right. So where else have you been? Central America. You seem like you got it all covered.
Did go to Argentina once.
Oh, that'd be rad.
That was with the U.S. amateur surf team. So.
Oh, so you went as a group.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, that was crazy. We were staying at this hotel in Mar del Plata, and that's like this big beach town. It kind of reminds me of like Atlantic City or something like that, like all these huge high rises right on the beach and tons of little jetties there. And then we were taking a bus to the beach every day, this like super remote beach.
Okay.
And
so you're not surfing out front?
No, like you could, but yeah, it was just kind of interesting that whole scene. Then we're at the beach all day, you know, the tents are set up there and there's like one little restaurant and just running our heats. But then Fernando, the founder of Reef, he's from Argentina. He's from that area.
Okay.
And so it was the Pan Am Surf Games. And so he threw this like giant party. And I remember the Americans, our team, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night. And we're like, we're tired. Like, let's go to bed. I remember catching a taxi back to the hotel and they're like, oh, so what's the next party you're going to? We're like, no, we're going to bed. I'm like, they couldn't even comprehend this. Like, it's 11. The night's just starting. What are you doing?
Yeah. So different culture altogether.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what else? How are the waves?
The waves are fun. It's chilly there. We were there in December, which is their summertime.
Yeah.
But we're still in full suits. I mean, it's obviously like pretty far south also, so I'm not sure what it exactly equates to here, but there were some fun waves. We really just surf the contest site, so it's kind of like if you come to the U.S. and all you surf is Huntington Beach, I'm sure you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah. So how many people were in the group? And then...
Oh gosh, there was probably 20 or 30 of us.
Oh, that many! Wow.
Yeah, because there was a lot of the different age ranges of the junior boys. There was like longboarding, kneeboarding, the women's, bodyboarding, all those divisions. So all said and done, it was somewhere between 20 and 30. And honestly, I feel like we probably got third or fourth overall.
Okay.
I can't remember it. We didn't win, but
okay, interesting. And then anywhere else? Mostly, have you went off the continent? South
Yeah. So then I've been to Dominican Republic also, and then over in Europe in Portugal, Spain, France.
Wow.
Canary Islands.
How's Canary Islands?
Canary Islands is fun. It's way more crowded than I thought. It is interesting though. They call it like the dry Hawaii because it's all volcanic and like you're out in the middle of the ocean there, but they don't get a lot of rain, so it doesn't have all the lush greenery.
So a lot of exposed rocks.
Yeah, but it's just so volcanic. It almost feels like you're on Mars sometimes.
Really interesting.
And the way they grow, there's some really good waves for sure. There's a lot of wine out there too, and they actually grow in order to protect it from the wind. They build these little like rock circles around their vineyards to for the wind protection. Yeah.
Okay. And then Portugal and all those places. How's that?
Yeah.
Do you have any stories, like European stories, good or bad?
I can tell you. So I got some great waves in Portugal, but I was also probably the most scared I've ever been, just because there were so many people that had no idea what they were doing.
Really?
And just bailing boards everywhere, having no idea just like when you could take off or not. And so there was quite a few breaks that I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a complimentary visit to the Portuguese hospital if I stay out here. And I don't think I need that.
No. Okay. So for sure, no etiquette there. Is it because it's the newer sport to them? What do you think?
And it's not the Portuguese surfers, because what it is,
tourists.
it's the tourists, and they
gotcha.
come in there and they'll
Rent a board.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as soon as you see the torque boards out there, you're just like, oh no. But then the Portuguese surfers are incredible, and so same kind of thing. Like if you go to a break that's considered more of an advanced break, it'll be like here. So for instance, you might go out and there's people out, but they understand the rotation. And you can like hang out on the shoulder, wait for someone to wipe out or get caught behind a section, and it's all good. And they know how to avoid you, or you avoid them. It's fine. And especially if you go to some of the other breaks like Nazare, whatnot, there's
You surf there?
I almost did one day on a small day. But yeah, so certain breaks. But then there's the other ones that are just like, and the ones that have like 6 surf schools that are there. You're kind of like, you should know better, but
Yeah.
you see that. So it's definitely, I mean, the Portuguese people are amazing. And I would say that country is just so incredible in terms of the culture, the history, the food. But yeah, there's just too many at that point, like vacationing surfers that would come in that were just clueless, that I was just like, oh, this is, but there's some great waves there. I will say that.
So 2-part question. One, I've never asked before. Do you think, I don't want to, I guess I'll use like language kind of, but is there a universal rule, they say rules in surfing that you see around the world that we all play by the same rule? Does that make sense? How you saying like etiquette wise? Is it etiquette? Is it universal throughout the world, the places you've surfed? Does that make sense?
It should be. I mean, I would say in surfers that know what they're doing.
Okay. So we're not talking about the tourists, but let's say like in a normal lineup in Portugal or Costa Rica or even Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
Are we all kind of doing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, it's the competition rules, like the surfer closest to the peak
Right.
has priority. And
Okay. What about like localism? Did you ever like run into that? Like the guys just stuffed you? It's your wave and guy or girl stuffed you?
I wouldn't
Just because you didn't live there?
Oh, no. I wouldn't call it like localism. That they didn't do that just because like I wasn't from there. It was just disrespectful people in general that were just like, meh,
No, they
I
didn't
don't
care.
care. Yeah.
Okay. Just jerks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then all these countries, do you speak Spanish or how is language barrier?
Yeah, I only
Like
speak,
Portuguese, that's a rough one.
Yeah, no, I mean, Portugal being in the European Union, you can get by with English so easily there.
Okay.
There's a couple times when you're in shops, things like that. Like,
The local merchant maybe not understand.
exactly. But in terms of everything else, I mean, so many people in Europe speak English as well, and especially anything coastal is going to have a lot of tourists as well. And so, people from France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, English is kind of a common. So it is, I mean, yeah, if you're in Portugal, Portuguese is going to be the most common language, but then English would be the second most.
Okay. What about Central America or South America? Do you run into any problems? Language?
No, not at all. With that, I think they see you, they pretty much are going to expect that you don't speak the language or you don't speak it very well. And then you kind of come more to the understanding of getting the basics across. So yeah, definitely not having a rich conversation with people, but in terms of like getting the transaction that you need. And obviously like ordering things off a menu or pumping gas and paying for it, can work that out pretty easily.
Which brings me to another question I never asked. Okay, food wise, what was the best place? Like what country were you stoked on the food, and which one were you like?
Yeah.
Was there like a certain place where the cuisine was just like, I'm going back just for that? Or one place where it's like, I don't know what I'm eating here.
Yeah. Well, the surf camp I stayed at Panama.
So the camps are probably pretty safe.
Yeah, the Panama camp did not have the best food. I
Okay.
would not generalize in Panama based off of that, but the one place I stayed was just, let's just say it helped my diet. There are some other camps that I've been to that so most of the time I do stay at a camp. It's I'll be there for like a week to 2 weeks. So it's the difference was Portugal. I was there for 6 weeks, so I did experience a lot more of the culture and the food than your normal, like, okay, I'm going to go to Tabarua for a week.
Yes.
Which Tabarua probably has the best food ever.
Probably.
That is so insane.
Yeah.
The camp I stayed at in Indonesia had incredible food too, and they did a really big mix of the Indonesian cuisine as well as some American. And the owner's wife is Brazilian, so she had a lot of Brazilian influence there. So that was fantastic.
Okay, so how was Indo? I didn't know. You didn't put that on your list.
Yeah, Indo, Australia, New Zealand, Maldives also on there. So
wow, where haven't you been? Where haven't you been and you want to go?
Yeah, I really would like to spend some more time over in Asia Pacific. So like Philippines, Taiwan, a little more time in Indo, even like Papua New Guinea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can you go there to surf?
Yeah. It looks like there's some really good waves there. I haven't been there, but I was looking into it. So I'd love to spend some more time there. And
so now you're talking like New Guinea, that whatever language they speak, I have no clue. That seems like pretty challenging.
Again, that's why I personally would go with the surf camp. I mean, if someone wants to,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if someone wants to go off the grid and speak with the locals, more power to them. Me personally, I'm going to take the easy path.
Okay. And then you get that wave. Okay. So do you think it's kind of fascinating because you've probably done more traveling than most. Has surfing changed the world in certain ways? Has it changed local cultures? And let's say New Guinea, that's got to be relatively new, right? Even though you haven't been there, but I think Indo's changed. 50 years ago, Indo was probably not close to what it is today.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, I think that especially in a lot of these coastal towns, it's
that's what I mean.
Probably at first they were like, these people are crazy. What are they doing? And then now it's just kind of like, oh, it's the surfers. They're cool. Like they just want to get up early and go catch some waves and then eat a bunch.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're like, probably stoked to see us and just get some extra money in the economy for some pretty easy tourism. So I think at first, they probably just like thought we were crazy. And now we're just like, oh, cool.
Okay. And then how's Australia?
Australia's
kind of be similar to us.
Yeah. And so
as close as it can be.
Yeah, I went to the Sydney area right after high school. So
cool.
Long time ago. And
so rad.
Yeah, that was a great vibe, and was staying with a friend of the family. So they'd like drive me around, surf with me, and got some fun waves. And then more recently was in the Melbourne area. So I did go down and surf I was like, I have to surf Bells Beach.
How was it?
And there was no waves.
Oh, okay.
I was like, and I was down there, and from Melbourne, it's I think like a 2-hour drive. It's close, but it's not like
it's like driving to Rincon or something, maybe.
Yeah, from LA, but it's like no, I have to. So I go there, and I'm like, there's no waves. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna paddle out, and maybe something will come in. And like legitimately, there was not a single person out. That tells you like that's like driving by Malibu and not a single person out, right?
Yeah.
Clearly something's wrong.
Okay.
So I'm paddling out there, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm sitting in the right place because there's some little dribbler waves, and I think I like stood up on like 3 waves, which promptly just died, and then was like. And then there was about like a half dozen people out down at Winky Pop. Yeah,
which is right around the bend, right?
It's like you can see it from there. It's just down the beach. It's I don't know, probably someone that knows Australia better is gonna be like, oh, she's totally wrong. But I feel like it was like 500 yards south.
Okay,
so it's or north. My direction's like all off but like about 500 yards away. So so I just paddled because I'm like, well, might as well get some exercise. Okay, and went down there. Or up there. And Winky Pop probably was like waist to maybe chest high. And it was hitting a little bit more. I mean, you could take off and probably do 2 or 3 turns before it was just like on the rocks on the inside. So I got a few there.
Fun. Okay. Cold
Yeah.
water?
It wasn't too bad.
Okay.
It probably like around here. And when was I there? I think it was April. So that would be their fall. So it's probably like September, October around here, which I was wearing, I think it was a 3-2 and was fine.
Okay. All right. So anything else about traveling? How's traveling with boards? Have you had horror stories there?
My boards have never been that messed up. So I think the worst was first time I went to Costa Rica back in the mid 90s and still had glass on fins at that point. And my fin broke off. But other than that, yeah, pretty much good.
Okay.
Got my gear there. Of course, it's always a hassle, and you just never know, especially on other airlines in other countries, what they're going to say when you get to the checkout counter.
Like charge you wise?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you leave the boards behind sometimes or never?
Never done that.
Okay.
Definitely paid more than I was expecting to and wanted to, but never was to the point where, because I always had like other stuff in the bag too, and it was just like, nah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, deal with all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much are you getting in the water now? Like, you kind of sound like you work a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think my boss wants me to work, but
Are you be able to squeeze in the surfing?
Yeah, it depends on my meeting schedule, and especially nowadays with work from home a lot more. It's a lot more fluid. So you might have a lot more mornings starting at like 7, 8 a.m. or going until like 7, 8, 9 at night because my role in my company is global. So we'll be talking with people in Europe or people on the East Coast. And then we'll be talking with people in Australia and people in China. So it's all spread out. So it's really what your meetings are like for that day. Like, hey, do I do the dawn patrol? Do I do sunset session? Can I get a lunch session in? So it'll depend on.
Is that good or bad?
I like it a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's more flexible, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay. And
then so sometimes you can be like a little bit more flexible in terms of then like the tide or what's going on and trying to arrange that. Where before, if you're in the office 9 to 5, you have to dawn patrol it or do sunset. And if the tides aren't right or if it's blown out, that's that.
Yeah.
So I like having that flexibility. And generally I surf the weekend and then probably on average 2 days during the week of some time during the day. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. And then your boards. Want to talk about your boards? You have a lot of boards.
I've been surfing a long time and I'm really bad at getting rid of boards.
No, that's good. And then you showed me one of your old boards from like a long time ago. Not that long ago, but quite a while ago. So do you ever bust out those old boards just to see how they feel today?
I should really do that more. I become such a creature of habit. I usually have like 2 boards in my car, like my everyday short board and then a fish. And I'll pretty much just be like, ride those nonstop. I should really be better at riding the other boards.
And how do you feel about surfing in general? Like from when you learned when you were like the 8-year-old to where you are today, do you still have that same stoked or is there certain sessions or is it more of a habit you surf? Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah. I mean,
are you bored with it?
I'm definitely not bored with it. And then that's something I'm always looking to improve. And so actually like a lot of these trips that I go on are trips with coaches and trying to improve my skills. Cause I just think like, and I have no ambitions to compete again, but I just think if you're spending that much time doing something, like get better at it, refine your craft and get an expert that knows what that can help you do that.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of continuous improvement. And so that's always kind of driving me because it's like, okay, it's fun, but I'm also looking to improve and advance. And it's also just surfing is what makes me. And it's not like I'm bored or anything like that, but it's just like, I don't know. It's like eating or breathing. It's like maybe I don't need to surf as much as I need to eat, but it's up there.
Okay. So then have you ever been injured or anything where it's like you're out of the water for an amount of time?
Been really lucky there. The longest I was out was about a month.
Okay. So how was that month? Were you feeling it like to get back in the water or was it kind of nice to take a break?
No, I was definitely like, couldn't wait to get back out there.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then exposure wise, do you like the exposure? Do you like, you ran a magazine for example, and you were posting pictures of girls surfing.
Yeah.
And some girls, they put me on the cover, whatever. And then the other girls are like, do I really want to be in the magazine? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
So how do you feel about that? for yourself?
Yeah, for myself, I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, who doesn't love a good shot of themselves?
Right.
And hey, if it winds up somewhere, cool, but I'm not going to be crying if it doesn't. So case in point, the Panama trip was actually for Women's Surf Style magazine, which is like, I think the only women's surf magazine left. And so it's kind of cool. Like the publisher of it, this is one of the ways she found to make money, is to actually organize these surf trips, which then she writes about and includes some photos of in the issue. So the Panama trip was one of those. And the photographer that came along with us, I'm pretty sure I'll picture in the magazine, but how big it is and where it is, like, I don't know. Yeah. There could be other girls that were on the trip that get like 6 pictures. Okay. And it's just kind of like, all right, well, hey, if it happens, cool. If not, hey, I got some good pictures for myself.
Are you crossing your fingers? Or you just don't care?
Like honestly, like it would be cool, but I'm not. Okay. Yeah, I'm more concerned with, I don't know, if it's just a nice picture that then, I don't know, maybe might blow it up and put it in my hallway.
So I'll ask you a real quick question. I think you've already kind of already answered it. The idea of a perfect wave. I'm thinking you like right point breaks.
I surf lefts a lot. So I'm regular foot. Okay. And it's just like, especially on a wave that isn't like top to bottom, like super crazy. Like I just feel like you can just get so much more rotation and like that backside. Bottom to top. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you.
And so I don't know. I really have fun doing that. But, a right point, like that had a little barrel section would be so dreamy.
Okay. So that's your dream wave?
Yeah. Like a little overhead.
Have you had one of those waves? Where was it? You don't have to say exactly.
Had a few of those in El Salvador and Mexico.
Okay. All right. And then what about like stretching and working out? Do you do that towards surfing? Do you do that at all?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Every morning start with about like 20 to 30 minutes of yoga.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, actually it wasn't really anything that kept me out of the water, but definitely some like back problems. And then again, that's just very common from like when you sit a lot and you're doing so much with your upper body. But so anyways, I started doing that back in my 20s. And yeah, every morning start with 20 to 30 minutes of yoga. And then probably about 4 to 5 days a week, I'm doing some kind of cardio to also balance that out. So like beach boot camp or HIIT training, things like that.
Oh, okay. So, and then what about the history of, so this one I'm kind of fascinated. This could be almost a different podcast. We can do another interview. I don't know, how well do you know like the women's history of surfing? And do you feel it's different than the males? Or do you think it's all grouped together? Does that make sense, my question?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Because in some ways, it's together. And I did get a chance. So when I lived in Morro Bay, Marge Calhoun was living there. Okay. And yeah, she was like one of the original.
I just saw the movie at the Surf Museum about her.
Oh.
Or it was like, she wrote, I didn't know a little bit about her, yes.
Yeah, and so she was like there with DeBull and so I got to know her when I was living there. I'd probably go over every few months and just have some like coffee at her house, and she'd tell me all the old stories from back in the day.
Rad.
Yeah. And it was like, she'd tell me all about like sneaking onto the base to surf trestles and everything they went through there. And just amazing stories from back in the day. And it was just like, that was just it. I mean, she was just kind of like one of the gang, and it wasn't really any different. Okay. Same with Linda Benson. I've talked to Linda quite a bit, and same kind of deal. She's over there, first woman to surf Waimea, and just doing her thing. So I think in a lot of ways and again, there wasn't a lot of women, right? So they did. It's not like they were hanging out by themselves. Like generally, if they were blazing a path, they were hanging out with the guys of the day that were doing the same thing. So
all surfers.
Yeah. Okay. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert in women's surfing history, but I'd probably say I know more about it than most. Okay. If that's fair.
Is that because you're a magazine, or you're interested in it, or the people you've met?
Yeah. The people I met, and I haven't read Jim Kempton's latest book yet, but the one before it, Andrea Gabbard had written, and obviously a lot of Matt Warshaw's pieces. And so I've really, back in the day, read a lot of those pieces, got to know a lot of the women. And so definitely don't say I'm like the historian, like I'm the Matt Warshaw of it, but no, my fair share.
Okay. And do you so some of your experiences you had surfing, do you document any of that for yourself or anything? Or is it just on what you remember?
Yeah, most of it's just in my head.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
every once in a while I wrote articles or just kind of took some notes, but I like to just have the photos to rely back on as well.
Okay. You think you should maybe write some of that down? Just so it doesn't get lost. I don't know. So, I mean, I went to the Doc Ball thing where he's like the first water photographer.
Yeah.
Basically, he's the first water photographer guy. And he talks about it at the time, like later on when the girls would start showing up and then surfing. And it was kind of cool. Like I don't know. I think that's how it kind of started.
Yeah.
I don't know why it became like, I don't know how it even became really, I don't know the history of that. So actually I might edit this stuff out.
And I mean, there was a little bit within the girls that were banding together, like Jericho Poplar and the Golden Girls. And, they'd have their little groups. But I think, it just kind of.
Surfers are surfers?
Exactly.
Okay. And then surf-wise, what was like the greatest moment in your life around surfing? Do you have any of those?
Ooh.
That stand out? Like, oh, that was. It doesn't have to be competition. It could be a wave, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say some of these surf trips, like Mexico and El Salvador, where you're just catching, you're surfed out. I mean, that doesn't happen to me that often. Where you're like legitimately sitting there and you're like, I'm good. Like I've caught so many waves today. I just can't even paddle anymore. I'm just going to eat this meal and just bask in this glory. And so it's kind of like that experience of the day, those few days of just like feasting on waves.
Yeah. Are you fried coming back on the plane? Usually?
Oh yeah. Like my last trip to Mexico, I don't think I could have stayed there any longer because I would have just run myself into the ground.
Oh,
it
really?
was like, the waves were so fun and you're just like, you're frothing. And I started like stretching every morning, every night, doing my yoga. But it's just, at home, I'm surfing like an hour or two a day, let's just say like 4 or 5 days a week. And then you go on a trip like that and you're surfing
8 hours.
Yeah. And so it's just like your body's just not used to it. You start getting sore. And so I think, had I stayed any longer, I would have probably got in trouble because I was just frothing way too hard.
And you couldn't just take the day off, probably. Especially if it's right in
you
front
can't
of you.
sit there when you're watching perfect waves and take the day off.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. What about social media? Are you on social media?
Yes.
Okay.
Instagram.
You want to give your handle name?
At sunshine_Makarow.
Okay.
So it's not all surfing, little mix of everything going on in my life.
Yeah. Okay. Do you like it? What's your feelings on social media?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like it has its role. Now, I used to be on Facebook. Technically, I have a profile on Facebook. I don't think I've logged into Facebook in over a year. So it's still sitting there, but there's just, to me, Facebook just became too toxic. So that's me personally. I don't tweet either. There's just like way too much going on. But I like Instagram. And I like it because you can kind of curate your feed. You can decide who to follow or who to not follow and what's going on. So you can be like, do I want to just look at cute pictures of kittens and waves and tropical locations?
Right.
Like I can set that up and you don't have to, deal with all kinds of craziness going on. And so I like that, but it's also, you got to be realistic. What you're seeing tends to be the spectrums of either like the best or worst of things. And it's not really like true life. So I like Instagram, and then, for professional, I'm on LinkedIn, but those are pretty much my only social platforms that I'm checking out.
Okay. And then currently pro surfing today, are you watching it or how much?
I do like watching it at certain contests. And what's tricky for me is that the contests, like once they're on, they're on. And so I might be like, oh, okay, I just want to see Carissa Moore's heat. And then you're like, oh, wait, Tati's up next. I got to watch that one. And it's like, oh, Gilmore's in the next heat. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was just going to watch like a half hour, and 3 hours later, you're so yeah, I have to be careful. Like it's like eating a Pringles, right? Like you can't eat just one. So I get sucked in, and then so that's not good. And then certain waves I'm just not as excited about as,
Right.
as watching others. So certain waves I'll be like, oh, I totally want to watch that contest.
Okay, like Honolulu Bay. Like, what are your like? See, I like to watch the Honolulu Bay, especially.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I
Do you like the bigger, hollower waves, or like?
that can be fun for a bit.
Okay.
And I did like the Mexico contest. Usually if it's more waves, actually, the Australia leg this year was pretty interesting. I kind of like it when the waves aren't so perfect because
it's more like our waves we're surfing every day. Yeah.
I mean, I think the Narrabeen one was like, oh, that looks like a lot of breaks around here.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit more fun. Like chopes can be fun to watch for a little bit, but then you're like, okay, well.
So are they sent? So I think they might be sending. So for the first time, I think the girls are going to surf there. How do you feel about that?
So they've surfed there before.
Oh, they have.
They used to, yeah, back in the day. So
didn't
when
know that.
Kiela Kenley, Rochelle Ballard.
So she charges.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like big time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they had that back in the day, when like Sofia Milanovic, that whole crew.
I don't remember that. Okay.
It was
interesting.
like the early to mid 2000s. They had the girls surfing there and Cloud Break and Sunset.
Okay.
And so the girls had some pretty heavy waves. And yeah,
What do you
Rochelle,
feel?
Kiela were like, I think like if you're on the professional world tour, like, and the best of the best, you got to surf waves like that.
Okay. So, and I don't know if they're going to run pipeline this year too. So it's going to be interesting for the girls. And there's a lot of young girls coming up that are surfing some pretty heavy waves.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, so this is your interview. I'm just wondering, are you familiar with any of the young ladies coming up?
So
Or
a
who you're
couple of them, Sierra Kerr,
Yep.
she's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably like the two young ones that I'm most familiar with.
Okay.
And I don't think they'd have any problem in a wave like that.
And the bigger waves, you mean?
Yeah.
And heavier waves?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and do you think, like, I don't know, in my opinion, they need to stir up the tour a little. I think the same ladies have been there for so long. For me personally, so I'm kind of excited of the young crew coming up.
Yeah.
Me personally.
Always interesting, yeah, to see the new people. And, obviously this year with having the contest back on, they had to make some changes to the locations. And I think it's good to like mix it up and not just have the same thing every year.
Okay.
So I like them changing the locations.
Well, now, did you watch the final for the WSL where they did the top? And what's your thoughts on that?
I didn't watch it,
Okay.
and I still have ambitions to. Obviously, I know
You
who
need to.
won.
It was super
but
exciting.
I need to go back and watch it.
The way they did it, I was kind of like negative towards it, but when I watched it, it put a new excitement into surfing,
Oh, nice.
in my opinion. So
Okay.
watch it.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube all day
Okay.
long.
I know. The WSL does such a good job of like having it on demand and even the heat replays. And even if you don't want to watch the whole heat, you can just see the highlights or just see the waves ridden. It's fantastic.
That
the
way
they've
it'll keep
set
you
it
out of
all up.
trouble from
Yeah.
losing 8 hours.
But I like when I am watching it because the waves are the waves, right? And that's the highlight reel. But it's what goes on in between that I think is the most telling in terms of where are they sitting? How are they moving? How are they like paddling against each other? And especially if you surf that break or you have ambitions to surf that break, that's what I really like seeing is how they're moving around the lineup. So that's why I would watch the whole session and not just the actual waves ridden.
Really? Okay. Never thought about that, honestly. But is the camera telling you the real story? Where's the camera at?
That's true too. You're not getting
Or the drone or whatever
Yeah.
they're using nowadays. But I never thought of that. That's a good point. So, okay. Especially, can you pick some of your surf destinations from the WSL? Or have you?
I haven't, but
I see that wave. I need to go surf that wave.
for me, it was more after I surfed Cloud Break and
Oh, you didn't
let's
tell us
just
about
say I wouldn't call it a success.
What does that mean?
It's not like I was out there scoring barrels
Mm-hmm.
and like you might dream, but I didn't get killed or hurt, so that was good. But yeah, I definitely.
Okay,
didn't-
so tell us about Cloud Break. Tell us about what you're talking about. So how was the wave? How big was it? And is it heavy?
Yes. So the day I went out there was like 4 to 6 foot faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I can do that. But it's open ocean.
Yeah, so you're way out there.
And then what happens is all of a sudden there will be a 10 to 12 foot face. And you're like, I did not sign up for that. I signed up for 4 to 6 feet. and so you're scratching. And cloud break is a lot of like these open ocean breaks where in California, a set comes, okay, I'm just going to paddle my butt off towards the channel and you can just kind of diagonal it across.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times you're at these open ocean reefs and actually there's this second peak that comes up that's almost like even bigger or more walled. And so if you start paddling towards the channel, you're actually just going straight into this, this like corner wraparound spot. Okay. And that's why like cloud break, they actually say like take off a little bit deeper. It's mellow. Like you drop in and then you get over here and then that's when it like jacks up and goes. But then when a big 10 to 12 foot set comes that on your 4 to 6 foot day, like you almost have to go like straight out rather than towards the channel. And yeah, it's just like getting caught inside on that stuff. So
did you get caught inside?
I did, yes. I got.
You want to describe that?
Well, it was not a pleasant experience. But I lived. My board didn't break. And then what's bad is like when you do catch one, they'll say this like on shish kebabs. It's you're riding it to the inside and you're just like, oh, should I ride it a little further? So I ride it a little further. You don't really know. And then pretty much, and then here's the thing too, is like, you really have to go. It's not like it just kind of fizzles out into the shoulder like a lot of California point breaks. It's like steep all the way there. So you almost have to, when you're on the inside, then just like go straight sideways for a while till you get to the channel and then come back around. So when you're in shish kebabs there, though, it's like it's maybe this deep. So you can't duck dive. Like you basically you're just holding onto the rail and just like
wow.
And trying to go. So I remember, so after I surfed cloud break, then I'm like, I'm going to watch the contest and see what happens and see how they're doing it. And so that was like my big thing of like, and I remember, I think it was Kelly Slater was surfing and he had caught a really good wave, like all the way in, like into shish kebabs. And then he was trying to paddle back out and just basically has to like take this big one to the head because he's like in shish kebabs. The jet ski can't get in there. Got nothing on. And I remember Alex Gray was a guest commentator.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, oh, there's the yin and yang of cloud break. You catch the wave of your life and then shish kebabs tells you who's boss.
Oh, man.
Like, and it was just like, okay. But once you've surfed away, I think like if you watch it before you go, it can help. But once you've been and then you watch it again, you're like, okay, kind of getting it more now. So.
Okay. All right. So you've answered. Thank you so much for doing the interview. You have any final words?
Keep having fun. Keep surfing.
Okay. There you go. All right. So thank you so much. This is super fun. Okay. This is Mike and Sunshine with the QuiverCast, and we'll see you all later. Thanks everybody for listening. Please follow us on Instagram and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us 5 stars if you listen to us on Apple. And do me a favor and tell a friend that QuiverCast is back. I'd like to thank Blue Factory and Dave Hegstrom for the music. And I'll see you all in the lineup. Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic. Numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.